Hi, and welcome back to 10 Minute Bible. My name is Michael Venema, and thanks for joining in. Last video, we worked our way through a part of Luke chapter 6, and we're going to pick up there again. And when we left off last time, we ended with Jesus revealing to his listeners that he was siding with the tradition of the righteous Jewish prophets who were frequently very badly treated, sometimes having to flee for their lives, sometimes being jailed, and worse. And so Jesus is busy telling his followers that if you're with me, you're on the side of God's grace and God's truth, but it may not be pleasant. And at the end of the last video, I suggested that Jesus was seeing around him a repeat of the pattern that was found in the Old Testament, in the pre-Jesus parts of the Bible, a repeat of some of the history of the Jewish people, the Israelites, a repeated pattern where people, especially leaders of the faith of the Jewish people, had aligned themselves with some of the corrupt political leadership of the day and got into a lot of trouble and got their people into a lot of trouble and got into a lot of trouble with God. So Jesus saw this pattern being repeated, and he is calling upon his listeners to walk with him and not to fall in with the leadership and their corrupt alliances. So this kind of thing continues on. I'm beginning at verse 22, roughly. I've got a couple of versions of the Bible in front of me. I'm using one called Good News, just a little, very small copy of it here. And I frequently use a version of the Bible called The Message because I think it very nicely captures the dynamics of the and the sort of vibrancy of the way that people would have heard Jesus originally. Anyway, I'm going to be quoting mostly from The Message, and then I'll try to say some things as we move along. So already up to verse 23, Jesus has aligned himself in this way with the righteous prophets and telling his listeners, "Hey, come with me." And this difference between Jesus and the typical religious Jewish leaders of the time is going to come up a number of times also in the reading as we continue on. So in the Message, it continues on this way. It's trouble ahead if you think you have it made. What you have is all you'll ever get. So here on the one level, Jesus is warning his listeners to not side with those who think they have it made because they're properly aligned with the political powers of the day, the Romans, because that's what you have presently is all you might ever get. Things may go very badly for you for the future. If you want to apply that expression to our own lives in today's world, we might say that we should be careful about feeling, oh, I've got it made. I've got all the wealth and the money and the friends and the good experiences in life that I want, and this life is all I need. And Jesus says, well, he's implying that God has a lot more for you, but you may be excluding yourself from it by just being very self-satisfied or being very satisfied with your own current situations and your possessions and so forth. And then he goes on, and I'm continuing now. It's trouble ahead if you're satisfied with yourself. Yourself will not satisfy you for long. And again, on one level, he's thinking about the leadership of the time, the religious leadership, where the leaders were very self-satisfied with how they had worked everything out for themselves. But Jesus warns us, warn them, that is a dangerous path. And I think if we look at it another level for us today, I like this expression, be careful about being satisfied with yourself. And what I would say is, our own self is not a very good judge of who we are. I'm not a very good judge of who I am because I'm biased. And you're not a very good judge of your own self because you're biased. And we all have ways of hiding from things and concealing things from our own selves. So be careful about being satisfied with yourself. Sometimes people say, well, we should live without any regrets. We should get to the end of our lives and just say, yep, I've had no regrets. I've done everything as well as I could. And I sometimes hear that and wonder, well, what world are you living in? Anybody, I think, with any common sense is going to have regrets about things they've said or done. And anyway, so there's a number of reasons why being satisfied with yourself is not a good place to be, and it will not really bring us, I think, a lot of satisfaction. We need someone else. We need God we need God to be satisfied with us, right? Not our own selves. And so Jesus opens up the way in our thinking, opens our thinking processes to some different ways, not to be satisfied with the self, but to ask, what is it that would make my Creator, a loving God, satisfied with me? Then a couple of other lines from the Message. And it's trouble ahead if you think life is all fun and games. There's suffering to be met, and you are going to meet it. Well, we do sometimes meet people, and maybe we've fallen into that trap now and then in our own lives, where we think everything is great, everything's kind of a party, life is going along just great, we don't have to worry about anything really, and if serious issues do arise, we may just downplay them, be glib about them, write them off, and continue to live as if life is just a lot of pleasantries and parties and great times. But we know, I think, that is a very shallow way to live, because what happens is, well, if we just look around, we realize that there's a lot of difficulty in life, and some of that difficulty is eventually going to come to me, even if it's not here right today, this moment. And it's going to come to you, even if right now everything is really great. So we should not be glib or careless about how we think about life. It's not all fun and games, although there's a place for fun and a place for games. But that's not really the basic orientation towards our life. Sometimes, I think in our media and in our popular culture and society, especially in the affluent parts of the world, which are becoming more and more part of our world, the world is growing in affluence. People do have a feeling that, I ought to just be able to enjoy all kinds of trips and fabulous experiences and wealth, entertainments, and that's what my life is really about, to have these wonderfully, these fantastic experiences. And there's Jesus is saying, no, that's not really what's going to help us in the long run, because there is going to be suffering, and it's going to find you, whether I want it or not. It's going to find you whether you want it or not. Now, then it goes on. There's trouble ahead when you live only for the approval of others, saying what flatters them. Now, again, two levels. I think on the one hand, Jesus is saying to his listeners, don't follow those religious leaders of the Jewish community who sometimes do like a lot of flattery, and they like to have the compliments of their people. They like to have the compliments of the rich and powerful. And Jesus is saying, don't go for that kind of approach to life, and don't relate to people in that way. So and don't seek the approval of other people. So here Jesus is saying to his own listeners, pay attention to me. Don't pay attention to that society of people which wants to be flattered and told how good they are. So there's that level. I think in today's world, I think oftentimes we find, especially on social media, that there's a tremendous pressure to have the approval of other people. So you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of whatever popular opinion is on social media with respect to different issues that may be going on, whether it's race or justice or environment or other things of this nature. You don't want to be caught on the wrong side. So you want to be presenting yourself to your friends, and also presenting yourself on social media as if you have it all together and that you're on side with whatever the reigning popular opinion is. Now, I'm not saying that all popular opinion is bad. That's not the point. The point is that popularity is not the same as truth. And Jesus has come to the listeners, to the people of his day, and he comes to us with truth about how to live. And so living is not about having it made, which is false anyway. It's not about being self-satisfied, because your own self is not a good judge of who you are. And it's not about fun and games, and it's not about popularity and having the right opinions that everyone's going to praise you for. It's about God's truth for how we should live. So this is where it gets very challenging. In one of my Bible versions, the little one I've got here, it's subtitled, the next section is subtitled, Love Your Enemies. The other day, somebody asked me, what do you think is the code, that people should live by who are plugging into your church? Some of you might know that I've been working with a few people to start a church called Reach Community Church here in Kentville, Nova Scotia. And somebody asked me, what's the basic idea for how we should live? And I was tempted to say the basic rule is love your enemies. And I was tempted to say that because I think if we can wrap our heads around Jesus' command to love your enemies, then everything else becomes easy. Because loving your enemies is about one of the hardest things to do, because we have lots of enemies, politically, online, our neighbors sometimes, friends, there are bullies, there are people who've done disastrous things politically and militarily to other people, and all these people are in some way, the people who've done these nasty things are in some way our enemies. And Jesus says, love your enemies. And so he says, are you ready for the truth? And the first thing he says is, I say this, love your enemies. And a couple of verses later, he repeats it. He says, I tell you the truth, love your enemies. So I think I'm going to leave it right there and let you think on that. I'm going to think on it a little bit. And in our next video, we'll look at how Jesus works this out, how we should put into practice this very challenging truth. Love your enemies. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.